Alright, wow, here we go again. This is my third year now doing this video, so it's basically a tradition at this point. My video last year really kicked off this channel. We had 3,000, I think, subscribers back then. I'm really grateful for how far things have come. But anyways, so the entry phase for this event, for those unfamiliar, you design a character called a cadet. I made two this year, Clix and Cherry. I focused a lot more on making the presentation interesting and a part of the character compared to previous years. In my supplementary drawings and information for Clix, I figured out how to draw and do lettering in the style of like old illustrated fairy tale books, and I also did this walk cycle animation as a little bonus. Cherry is a remake from last year. It's fun to see these put side by side. The old one just looks kind of boring now. So I wasn't selected to compete though like last year, so the competition isn't super relevant to this video, and because of that there's not really any need for me to explain anything. Other than that, for 30 days, there was a new prompt to create art for, and just like the past 2 years that I've done this, I decided to do all 30 of them within those 30 days. And also, unlike last year, I was not working a job on top of this, so I did have time for actual breaks this year, which is ideal. I guess we can move on to day one. The assignment was to draw other people's cadets. I wanted to start off pretty big, so I picked these 4 characters to include in more of a story-based illustration. The idea was that they were carpooling to CHROMA Corps, but then the car broke down. This year made me really think and wonder how on earth I was able to do this every day on top of a 5-day work week and trip last year. I don't know, maybe I work slower, or it could be that just working with higher stakes and a time limit makes me work faster. Here is the finished illustration. It's funny to break down and look at the details. One odd detail being it looks like there's 3 separate things wrong with the car. The smoke from the back, the fire on the inside, and a flat tire. I don't know how that happened, but it's quite unfortunate. Just like last year, I also want to share art that people made of my characters. I'll be going off of Discord usernames for credit. There's this group picture by JXPolly that has Cherry in this bottom left area. This turned out really nice. I like the effects around the characters. This one by Jeb Cosby, who I did some stuff with last year if you remember. Clix looks so fun in their style, oh my goodness. This one is from my sister, actually. She doesn't normally do much drawing, but she decided that it would be fun to go ahead and do all 30 days of this art challenge with her cadet here, Carl. So I'll also have a few more to share from her later on. Another big group picture, which I believe this is Cherry right here. This one's by Stargecko. This one by Major Bon. Really cool effects here, papery texture. I like what they did with the eyes, very cool. And then finally, this one by Bristletail, one of the competitors this year actually. The idea was that the top 2 picks from the competitors would bring in the artist that they picked their character to draw from. Does that make sense? We'll go with it. So this wasn't in the top 2, so I didn't get in, but I'm just happy that someone did mine, especially Bristletail, because I really love their style. I was totally rooting for them to win, and they got really close. They were second, I think. But yeah, I think they post on Instagram, so you should go check it out. Okay, moving on to day 2. The prompt was Matcha Garden. I decided that this could be the name of a cafe, and made this harder on myself by doing a building design. After doing a sketch, I used 3D to get a more accurate perspective and scale, and to be honest, my 3D modeling skills still need work. I just can't ever seem to find the time to learn it properly, but it's good enough for my purposes, I guess. For the interior, I traced the basic lines and worked off of that, and for the exterior view, I painted over the 3D model itself, and that was pretty helpful to do because I didn't have to invent the light and shadow placement from scratch. In 2022, my first year participating in this event, I also did a lot of painting over 3D, but at the time I wasn't really confident yet with painting this sort of thing, so it's so obvious and awkward looking, the combination between the 3D and the painted stuff. It's a great process to use, but it's important to not be afraid to just paint all over everything. Remove all the boring, rigid perfections of the 3D model. I am not good at designing with safety in mind, so I didn't add railings to these stairs. Maybe I should do that later, I don't know. Just don't ever let me become an architect and design actual buildings. Day 3 was Water Sprite, a creature design. My main starting point idea was that the water sprite could have big round water droplets stuck to it, and my so-called rough thumbnail painting ended up far more detailed than I intended, and I felt I'd probably lose the charm of it if I started fresh with a more rigid process, so instead I just scaled it up and painted on top. Normally I like to keep main elements on their own separate layers, but in this case it was nice to not worry about doing that and just paint. You can't be on the wrong layer if you only have one. There you go. I've been experimenting with bringing some lines back into the illustration at the end. I used to treat lines as something that you need to get rid of in order for a painting to be finished, but they can be great for making things feel more energetic and expressive. I am changing my ways. Day 4 was Cadet brand footwear. For this one, I used cherry so that I could stick rockets onto roller skates, and I had those really enthusiastic ads for kids products like Nerf guns in mind. I hope you know what I'm talking about. The voice you should hear when you look at this is some random guy acting like this is the coolest thing he's ever seen, and I don't know, I think if this was real, it'd be pretty great. On day 5, the assignment was Bubblegum Mayhem. I realized that the physical properties of bubblegum have a lot of horror potential, so I used them for a swamp monster design. The pink against green color palette turned out pretty cool, and it's something I don't think I ever would have thought to do otherwise, except for this specific concept, and overall, pretty happy with this one. I had fun. Day 6 was Celestial Death Knight. To be honest, I really struggled on this day. I started with this crazy scribbly paper sketch, and after starting digital, I realized that the pose felt super stiff and flat, and so I used a design doll to try and come up with a better one, and I think this helped a little bit, but it's still not great. Still stiff and flat looking. To me, it feels like something that I would have made a year or two ago. It is such a joy to work on something and be like, I made this today? Oh no. So yeah, I'll probably redo this at some point, make it better. Just an off day. Day 7 was Mecha Crab for deep sea treasure hunting. Again, I started with a messy paper sketch. I think it's nice to start messy and just get ideas out without overthinking them. I've done so much practicing mech design this past year, but I still find it really difficult. It doesn't seem to come as easy to me as other things. Although, I do love rendering mechs and industrial design stuff, painting all the edges and the shiny bits, so I guess I just gotta keep practicing so that I can learn how to draw them properly first. I figured this thing could go both above and below water, but I did totally forget about the deep sea aspect of the prompt. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put it on a beach. Although, it doesn't really matter, because like, what is Cynics gonna do about it? To give me a strike, eliminate me? I'm not in the contest. Day 8 was Abstract Day. I started out by building a simple 3D scene. I really like abstract that incorporates form and lighting, and 3D is really fun to paint over and build off of for this sort of thing. This was when my cat unfortunately passed away, so I was really grateful that Abstract Day happened to land on this day specifically. There's a lot less planning and elements involved when you don't have representational things like characters, so I was already pretty much finished and was able to just like play Minecraft and watch YouTube for the rest of the day. On day 9, the assignment was Goblin Baker. Throughout these days, I've been trying out different processes to see what sticks and works for me, and I did enjoy what I did here. You can get things done fast by starting grayscale and not separating so many objects to different layers, although it was a bit tricky having the goblin on the same layer as the background later on. But in the future, if I use this process again, I can probably just think about that ahead of time and separate what I need to. Day 10 was Ancient UFO Landing Site, reclaimed by hazardous nature. A lot of people don't like doing environments, but I feel like I've been enjoying them more and more, and I had actually happened to watch, what's it called? I think Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind, just the other day, which is like sci-fi set on futuristic Earth with toxic plants and spores and things. So hazardous nature made me, of course, immediately think of that idea. I set mine on an alien planet to get the UFO landing site in there, and designed the plants to look really unsettling, kind of bug-like. I'm so sorry if you just really hate looking at this. I was trying out a paint stroke-like brush that I haven't used much before, and I had a lot of fun painting texture with it, so you'll probably see me use the same brush in later assignments too. On day 11, the prompt was Cadet encounters a forest spirit in the ancient overgrown land. This was a continuation of the previous assignment, so we were meant to use the same environment. For my character, I decided to use cherry again, mostly just because I needed to follow my previously established established lore of this being an environment with toxic, unbreathable air, and she would be much easier to design an appropriate outfit for. These were the initial sketches I did. I gave Cherry a breathing mask and space boots that aren't actually very visible in the final illustration. My idea was that the forest spirit is trapped, and that's why the planet is so corrupted. I did my best to sell that with details like vines wrapping around the creature and things growing on their back. Since it's the same environment as the previous piece, I was able to speed up the process by copying some elements over, which was incredibly handy to do, but it still was another day I struggled a lot. It just looked cooler in my head. Day 12 was Tomato Suitcase. This was a somewhat busy day, so I kept this one on the simpler side. Not too much to say here, to be honest. Just a goofy suitcase. Then, day 13, Lizard Necromancer and their minions, in the style of a Power Rangers enemy. Very interesting and specific. At the time, I was feeling jealous of people with more line-based styles that allow them to pack in so much detail and do more ambitious things in reasonable time, and I felt like I could try making a more complete and detailed drawing before painting in hopes that it would help make my design more interesting. I do like how the style of this turned out a lot, especially the bit of hatching I did on the throat. I think ended up looking cool on top of my usual painting style, and I didn't initially plan to, but I decided that the skulls could be the minions, partially because I didn't want to have to design more characters, and it also seemed like a fun idea. I feel like I totally missed the Power Ranger aspect of this. I tried to at least put hints of it in the clothing. I thought about getting rid of the cloth parts to make the outfit feel more plasticky, but I didn't end up doing that because I already liked it the way it was. Since the prompt had so many elements to it, it was tricky to include all of them, but overall, pretty happy with this one. Day 14 was Possessed Pier. I pretty quickly came up with the idea of a pier at low tide, with barnacles that glow red from the inside. It's surprising sometimes how you think an idea is so obvious and that everyone else must have the same one. I really didn't think I was being very original here, but everyone else thought of different fun ideas to take this in. As I tend to do with these environments, I started with a terrible 3D render. It's okay, the building is going to be lopsided and falling apart anyways. Painting the barnacles was fun and satisfying to do, and this turned out to be one of my favorites from the month. It's interesting to compare the 3D render to the final painting. It always looks so much more different than I expect it to. Day 15 was an unusual one. We were given the word visitor, but the main thing was an audio file to base our work on. I'm not going to play the audio, but I think I would describe it as a bit dramatic, big, and maybe a bit ominous sounding, so that made me think of a giant, round, godlike frog, naturally. I had a good time with this dramatic lighting, and not too much else to say here, just a goofy one. Day 16 was Word Art Day. We had the choice between doing graffiti or a logo design for ourselves or a cadet. I went with graffiti and chose to base it off of clicks. I first warmed up by doing graffiti and modded Lethal Company with a few friends. You know, playing the game as intended. Vandalism simulator. Using clicks gave me a lot to work off of, things that represent the character, like the wings, and I wouldn't say fangs, more like mandibles, which I had to look up. She's sort of part bat, part ant, and a part wolf. Anyways, last year, Cynic's main critique for me was that I didn't use good balance, so I decided an easy way out of that would be to simply make each side look pretty much the exact same. My voice is dying, so I'm going to take a break from recording, and then I'll come back on day 17. Hello, I am back with revitalized vocal cords. Day 17 was Origami Musician. This is a really cool concept, but not an easy one to do for sure. Designing and painting the look of origami when you know so little about how to do origami is a bit difficult. The first thing I imagined was a formal looking musician, but then I actually decided to make them more fun and eccentric. After seeing the cool things that other people did for this assignment, I do want to try redoing this at some point, but for now, I'll call this done. Day 18 was Fantasy Genre Dungeon Themed Restaurant Exterior View. To me, it made sense to design a restaurant that would fit in at like a theme park, and I actually decided to not use 3D for this one, and instead just started from a drawing. I realized that I had a person in there for scale in my rough sketch, but I didn't include that in the final version I posted on Discord. Cynics was reasonably confused about the scale, so I went in and added a person there after CHROMA CORPS was over. The door is quite big for a restaurant, but I'm sure it's probably lighter and easier to open than it looks. Day 19, the assignment was to design a menu item for our restaurant. So another one where two prompts connect to each other. Some people did crazy fun stuff. I did want to keep mine realistic in my theme park idea, so I attempted to make something that fit that, but also wasn't just boring. There are onions, carrots, cheese, and a slab of meat in this sandwich. I know what you're thinking, but you can't tell me that this is bad, because I know you haven't tried it. And neither have I, but you know. Day 20, the prompt was a soft landing. There's a lot of directions that you could take this. I first got to the idea of jumping onto a mattress from a burning building, and then I added the extra layer of a person throwing something of personal value down instead of themselves. That being a full gaming computer setup. This was another environment I surprisingly didn't use 3D on. I feel like the perspective is at least somewhat believable. I'm glad I was able to accomplish that for the most part. Day 21 was Cat Pirate with Lobster Pet. I hadn't done anything cute since the water sprite on day 3, so for this, I went for the dynamic of a child and their pet. I felt like less people would take this direction, and it was also one I just really enjoyed doing. Went more comfort zone for this one. Day 22, we created movie posters for a movie called The Magical Washing Board. Last year we also did a movie poster assignment, and for these I like to use it as an excuse to branch out style-wise. Partially also just because I don't feel like my style fits a movie poster. This time around, I picked a sort of old animated Disney style, and I didn't really know what a washing board was before this, to be honest. So this woman is probably doing multiple things incorrectly. Her technique is simply above understanding. Day 23 was Poisonous Mushroom, Knight Sword, and Shield. For prop design, I tend to start drawing a lineup of variations to get ideas out, and then pick what I end up liking best to paint. I researched a lot of poisonous mushrooms for this, and I still think that if I was lost in a forest with only mushrooms, I would still pick wrong and die. So many poisonous mushrooms look so innocent and generic. Day 24 was a fun one. We did cadet mugshots in the style of a fellow artist. I couldn't decide on one artist, so instead I picked 6. All people that I met through competing in CHROMA Corps last year. I'll include some art from each person for comparison so that you can see what I'm going for. There's a surprising amount of stuff that makes up a person's style, like line energy, shapes, color choices, so there was kind of an almost overwhelming amount of stuff to take into account. It took a lot of brain power. My take on Andre's style might be my favorite in terms of just character design. Clicks looks so funny here. The patterns in Ophelia's style were really relaxing and fun to draw, and for each one I found a different way to shape the fur. Like for Elodin's here, I used these fun wavy lines. And last of all, number 6. I think my take on double style is the one I'd most want to permanently steal. I'm not sure I fully hit the mark on all of these, but at least I learned a lot. Day 25 was human to machine, more specifically, CHROMA Corps cadets turned into machines. I didn't have much planning time on this day, so instead of picking really ambitious choices, I went with what I felt most confident that I could do, which was my own character Cherry, and a robot version of Ophelia's Borbs. For the Borb, I broke it down into only the most basic recognizable traits, so my Roborb is literally just a sphere with eyes. I think inflated parts of robots are pretty underused. Baymax is the only one that really comes to mind for me. I had the idea to represent Cherry's fluffy neck with that. Day 26, nearing the end here, we had Hall of Champions. This was a fun opportunity to highlight the past years of this event. I went back to starting in Blender, which in this case was very helpful for spacing out everything in perspective properly. The busts are all former winners of this event, and on the wall, I included art that I like and shows the achievements of people in previous years. I'll have to try doing more interiors in the future because I actually did enjoy doing this quite a bit. Okay, so sidetracking a bit here, there's usually some sort of big collaborative project done around the end of each CHROMA Corps, and it was around this time that I started helping out with making a CHROMA Corps anime intro that I was recruited to do animation for. The end result is awesome, and I'm really surprised that we got it done in just a little over a week about, I think. Really great team effort. Here is my finished animation for that. Pretty small part in it, but glad I was able to contribute. If you're interested in seeing the full thing, I'll put a link below in the description to wherever you can see it. On day 27, we designed Olympic team outfits. Because the Olympics went on at the same time as CHROMA Corps, the last portion of the contest was Olympic themed, and for context, if anyone needs it, myself and other competitors last year were called saplings, and since these are people that I've since gotten to know and have teamed up for things like projects and contests, it made sense to me to make a team clothing line based on that. These are the 3 characters I selected to model the outfits, and I was definitely cackling as I put these clothes on Double's character, which has full body armor, so it doesn't remotely fit with the character aesthetic, but it looks so good. The green tinted sunglasses are definitely my favorite part of this. Really completes the look, I'd say. A few people included clicks in their art on this day, which I'm trying to pull up, but my internet is gone for some reason. Hello? Internet? What's wrong? Okay, I pulled them up on my phone, this works. We've got this one by Spunky. I really like how they drew the shoes. T-Ted also did a sapling team design. Look at us, wow. And then my sister also did one with Clicks and Carl. They just don't design clothing that fits poor Carl's body type. Poor guy can't even see. Okay, I think that's all of them. So day 28 was individual event practice, a dynamic pose assignment. I was really glad that the clothing design prompt was placed before these last few, so I was able to use what I had already designed. I picked Clicks as my character to use, and Badminton as my sport, and it's again a character that was never meant to be put in clothes like this. It looks so awful and funny, I hate it. Day 29, the agony of defeat. This assignment was interesting because for the people following along, the idea was to specifically depict one of the competing cadets' characters being beat at a sport instead of your own. Then Cynics picked his top 5 from the follow-along submissions to add to the running against the artwork made by the competitors that day. Winning one of the 3 points handed out wouldn't do anything, but it would be funny. Anyways, I decided to have my cadet Clicks and my sisters beat this character at doing bike tricks. I don't do a lot of sequential stuff other than animation, so this was an interesting thing to figure out. Sort of treated it like a comic. It's funny, I forgot just how much I get motivation from competition. I got so much more done compared to other days, and I felt so focused and not tired. I didn't get a point, which isn't very surprising, because there were quite a few really skilled competitors this year, but it was in the top couple of follow-alongs, which is really a good enough achievement for me. I'm satisfied. Oh, and here we are, day 30. The thrill of victory. So much of my energy was spent on the previous day. I sort of picked that as my grand finale piece over this one, so I just drew this casually while talking to people in voice call. I didn't plan anything like composition, I just went for it. I used as many characters created by saplings this year as I had time to include, and I sped up my process by using really limited color, just a warm grayscale basically, and those stylish green shades of course. I have just a couple more things from other people to share. There's this one from, how do you say this, Zamos? Which is a fun celebratory group image with clicks in the bottom right, super fun. And one more from my sister. We are winning at, what do they call it now, artistic swimming? Okay, so here's everything I made put together. I'm always impressed seeing how much I've actually made in these 30 days. The time passes by so fast. At a certain point, it gets a bit more difficult to see growth in your work over a short period like this, and I think I've maybe started getting into that phase where I've learned so much over these 30 days, but I'm not really sure if my work shows it. My improvement in 2022 was so crazy noticeable, and in 2023, it might not have been as dramatic, but it's still there. Still, I'll continue that tradition of recreating work, this time just kind of a paint over of something I made a little before CHROMA Corps started, and I guess there is still some improvement here. Maybe I improved at environments more than anything else. More so, I think I was able to figure out what I need to work on more, mainly drawing skills over painting skills, and finding an actual consistent and efficient process based on what I've tried and liked doing these past 30 days. I hope that you enjoyed and found this interesting, even though there wasn't the extra drama of competing like last year. I have no idea yet if I'll be able to do this again next year or in any future years. As much as I really want to, setting aside 30 straight days for this is only going to get more difficult, and I don't think I have it in me anymore to do this and a job at the same time. I'm still really glad that I've been able to do this 3 whole times at least. 90 art pieces in 90 days in 30-day chunks is awesome and crazy, and it's cool to have my skill progress recorded in these 3 videos for myself and other people to check out and look back on. Here's a last year's video if you'd like to give that a watch. And if I'm able next summer, episode 4 may be on its way. We will see. Again, if you want to check out that animation I talked about, the link is below. And thank you to Cynics for hosting this event again. Thanks for watching!